All right, so we'll call the meeting of the Port Authority. First, we have the annual meeting and have a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for victims of gun violence in this country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. All right, the next item on my agenda is roll call, but I think you can see everybody who's here. And then online, we have Jim Brewster, Senator Jim Brewster, Ally Doyle, and Representative Piscana. Are you with us, Nick?
Yep, I'm here. Good morning.
Great, thank you. All right, so we have full attendance and don't need to go through the roll call. First order of business is a report of the nominating committee from our chair. Well, first, actually, I have a couple comments. So we're calling a meeting to order, but before we hear Stephanie's report, I do want to note that the board recognizes that there are going to be changes to the board's compensation with the election of a new county executive. And those changes are going to impact elected officers of the board. However, the elections are going to be held at this time, which is consistent with our bylaws to ensure that the PRT can continue to conduct its routine business, and also recognizing that the PRT's bylaws provide a process for replacing officers if any office becomes vacant during the calendar year. So with that, I'm going to ask Stephanie Thurman to give the report of the nominee committee.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Before I offer the committee slate of officers for 2024, I would like to thank my fellow committee members, Anna Gort and Michelle Smanik, for their assistance and guidance. The slate of officers being recommended to the nominating committee for the calendar year 2024 is as follows. Chair, Jeffrey Leplinglin. Vice Chair, Jennifer Liptak. Secretary, Senator James Brewster. Treasurer, Anna Gort. In addition to these officers, the nominating committee is recommending the elections of the following staff members. Dominica Brown and Peter Shank as assistant treasurers. Michael Citra, Diane Williamson, Julie Leisener, Catherine Lucas, and forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong, Jane Arendis as assistant secretaries. That would be the slate.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. But before I ask for a motion to nominate the slate, are there any other nominations from the board? Okay. Are there any other questions regarding the slate of officers being proposed? Okay, then with that, may I have a motion to adopt the slate of officers presented by the nominating committee for 2024?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. That slate is elected, and I just do want to take a moment to thank the board once again for providing confidence in me to chair the organization for whatever period of time I have left. Maybe that's the way I was approved because I wouldn't be here long. But I do thank you. This is been a very, very meaningful position to me. Okay, then with that, we're going to adjourn the meeting of the annual. We adjourn the annual meeting unless there are any other questions or comments. Okay, and with that, we'll move into the regular monthly meeting and call that meeting to order and ask for approval of the minutes of the November 16th regular meeting. Are there any comments with respect to the minutes? And can I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
For a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, those minutes are approved. And we'll move on to the report of our Chief Executive Officer, Catherine Kellman.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you for joining us today. The sun was out earlier, so uncharacteristic, but of course it's gone again. May I please have a moment of silence for the following employees and retirees who passed since last we met. Operators Paula Davidovich, John Paris, Percy Chapman, James Whippenbeck, George Panetti Sr., Joyce Ann Rose, Thomas Miller, Albert Kamenzend, and Fred Rayback. Service person Walter Lenert, construction foreman Gary Williams, George foreman Wayne Cardell, stock person Gary Bureau, LRT system supervisor David Horn, and automated repair person Jason Homolik. Thank you. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about the service adjustments that are coming through next month in February. And want to discuss, it's not a death of 1,000 cuts. It's not a death spiral. The 1.5% reduction in service is directly tied to our ability to get service out on the street. It's some of the folks who are speaking today have talked to us previously about making sure that if we're going to publish a schedule, we have the manpower to run it. So you'll see a schedule reduction in February. That's a trip here, a trip there, very widespread. It's a 1.5% reduction. I don't want to say we're optimistic. We've had very good service on the street right now. This should be the last reduction tied with a hiring and employment blitz. We're very comfortable that this will be a good year for us to turn things around. Our HR team, who is amazing and led by the amazing Inez Colon, is targeting getting 300 folks in this year for training just in operations. And in concert with our training department and our partners at ATU, we know we will have attrition of folks in training, but this will be the greatest number of folks we get in the door in memory. This gives us the ability to fill service. This gives us the ability to cover our retirees. When folks come here, they stay. Our annual attrition is usually less than 2%. So when we see folks getting into that 25 to 30-year cohort, we know we need to be planning for them to retire. This lets us stabilize service, particularly at our West Mifflin garage, where we may have 17 folks on what we call the extra board to cover 290 pieces of work. It's not going to happen. This lets us stabilize service. This also lets us expand our extra board. And why is that significant for folks who are not on the inside transit business? Expanding a board means we have the opportunity to speak to our operators on the clock and pay them to be at focus groups, at service committees, and give us their feedback on what's working and what's not. It is not appropriate for us to expect our folks to take their time at the end of a long shift and come and tell us what we need to be addressing. So by expanding this board, we have an opportunity to get that feedback. We have an opportunity to do refresher training. A lot has changed with us. Again, if our attrition rate is less than 2%, we have folks who've been with us for a long time. And this lets us do refresher training, update what we're hearing back and forth. So it's a long process, but this is, don't ask, don't get. Don't set a goal of 300 folks, and you're never going to know that you have the ability to fill all that service, build the board, and be able to add service again. Not add back what we had before, because the world is different, but there are new hospitals, there are new trip generators, there are folks who have a bus every 12 minutes today, and that sounds great, but they built their life around 9-minute frequency, and what does that mean for them? So first, the goal is make sure every bus is there, make sure it's the operator has the relief and the training they need, so they've got the ability to serve in the best capacity, and then expand service from there. I want to remind folks that if your bus is late or we've expanded the schedule, this is not the fault of the person driving your bus or showing up as a route supervisor or the person answering the phone. During the pandemic, when many of our peers made the decision to take out 12, 15, 20% of their service, I decided that we would do smaller changes because our city runs on transit. Pittsburgh's had transit since 1859. Land use in our neighborhoods are built around it. Businesses that rely on the incline have had an incline out there for 154 years, and it might be old, but we rely on transit. So I made the decision that instead of a wholesale cut that would hurt a lot, that we would see where we would go with hiring. So call and yell at me or send me an email, kek@rideprt.org, but please don't fuss at the folks who are doing the best they can to provide the service to you. Traffic is worse. We're all grumpier, so let's give them some grace as we work on stabilizing our schedules and getting more folks in the door. And now that we've brought up the incline, many of you know that since January 2nd, we have had the incline down. On January 2nd, we had a failure of a physical switch and then 2 backup safety systems. We had the incline down for about 250 days and 22 for a maintenance upgrade. So again, the incline predates the Model T. It predates the Chicago fire. And in the 1980s, we made a lot of changes and upgrades for safety purposes, for runtime purposes. And those entire computer systems have come and gone since we made those changes in the 1980s. It's akin to a hip replacement or a shoulder replacement. Get that joint replaced and it doesn't work out, you can't just take it out and put the old bone back in. We are a different system. There are 10 inclined planes in the country. 3 are here in the Commonwealth. One has not run for 3 years. So when we're talking about incline maintenance, it's not plug and play. It's finding something that is the equivalent of your great-grandfather had a Model A in the 1920s, and then your grandpa's best friend monkeyed around with it in the 50s. And then in the 80s, your dad's friend came over after auto shop and they got crazy with it. You have Frankenstein and you want it to run, you can get it to happen, but there are not easy off-the-shelf parts. Now, if you rely on the incline, you don't care. You want it up and running, and we understand that. So we are finishing programming that has to get done on the incline for a lot of the separate systems. Again, a lot of these are systems that there's nowhere else to test them, so we put them together. Some of these function on the doors, and clearly we don't want the door to open. The door could be closed, but if you lean on it and the door opens, clearly not safe for anybody, especially on the incline. We are optimistic the early part of February that we have all of our inspections done. We will be calling our friend Senator Brewster to make sure that if we need to expedite stuff with Departments of Labor and Industry, we can. And then our commitment from here on out is not just talking with the businesses, but what do you do with a 154-year-old asset? What do you build next to it or in conjunction with it? So you're not at the mercies of that monkey around Model A, and those are the conversations we'll be having. And I'm confident I probably have a lot of other stuff I can talk about, but it's a busy day for all of us. And I will, unless there's any questions, Mr. Chair, I will go ahead and wrap my comments.
Are there any questions from the board? No. Okay, with that.
Thank you, sir.
Catherine. Okay, now we'll move on to the report of the Performance and Oversight Committee from Michelle Zemanek, its chair.
Resolutions for your consideration. The committee first reviewed 4 procurement items and determined the bids to be in accordance with PRT's procurement policies and procedures and prices to be fair and reasonable. The Performance Oversight Committee recommends the award of bids listed in the resolution for the total amount of approximately $8 million. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
The second resolution would authorize PRT to enter into an agreement to provide real estate consulting services to provide expertise and technical support to PRT for all aspects of its real estate interests. Following the review and evaluation of the 2 proposals received, the proposal of Century Engineering LLC has been determined to be the highest rated proposal for the performance of services. The Performance Oversight Committee recommends PRT enter into an agreement with Century Engineering LLC in an amount not to exceed $1,268,940 for the initial 3-year period, with an option to extend the term of the agreement up to an additional 2 years at the sole discretion of PRT. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
May I have a motion? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
The final resolution authorizes PRT to amend the agreements with Whitman, Ricard and Associates LLP, Michael Baker International, and CDM Smith to provide architectural design services. The agreements were for an initial term of 4 years through September 30th, 2025, and a total not to exceed amount of $8 million. To ensure adequate funding for these services, the Performance Oversight Committee recommends increasing the total not to exceed amount for these agreements to $10,500,000. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. With that, we'll move on to the report of the Planning and Stakeholder Relations Committee from its chair, John Tague. John?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, fellow board members and stakeholders. The Planning and Stakeholders Relations Committee met last week. I have a few items for the board. First, Assistant Director of Planning and Service Development, Ellie Newman, gave a presentation on the fiscal year 2023 annual service report. Report evaluates performance against service standards using ridership, crowding, on-time performance, and out-of-service information, as well as equity and Title VI analysis. The report found that ridership for FY23, which ran July 2022 to June 2023, totaled 36.9 million. Ridership for most modes of service was up 16% for bus, 48% for light rail, and 10% for paratransit. Incline ridership had fallen by 52% due to being closed for half of the year. Bus on-time performance decreased from 71% to 67% due to construction-related delays, detours, increased traffic. Rail on-time performance increased from 83% to 87% due to fewer closures and detours. The service standards, which were updated to reflect the post-pandemic reality, showed that many routes were underperforming with frequency and on-time performance and will be prioritized for adjustments in FY24. Out of service numbers were shown to be improving since peak during the pandemic. According to the Title VI evaluation, minority routes and low-income routes were more likely to be crowded, which should be addressed with larger vehicles and adding trips where feasible. For fiscal year 2024, plan changes include the implementation of the Next Transit downtown routing study, continued progress on the PRT University line, and the bus line redesign planning project. The then Director of Transit Scheduling, Philip St. Pierre, gave a presentation on the February 2024 service changes. The changes go into effect on February 18th. They include minor service reductions around 1.5%, which allows for the additional operators to assist with covering service when operators are out and should stabilize service based on the projections. For the rest of the 2024 and beyond, as organization turns the corner with operator hiring. The proposed changes and also include routing changes for about 16 routes, trip adjustments for about 27 routes, and frequency changes on more than 20 routes and the red line, among others. The third item is the Allegheny County Transit Council met on January 23rd. Amy Silverman, Acting Chief Development Officer, provided council with an update on the Velasco Station project in Beachview. Philip St. Pierre, Director of Transit Scheduling, provided the council with an update on the October service adjustments and an overview of the February service adjustments. Ellie Newman, Assistant Director of Planning and Service Development, presented the fiscal year 2023 annual service report. Sam Windward, Senior Data Analysis, gave the council an overview of the automated passenger count data and how it informs PRT. Darcy Kleber, Director of Transit Amenities, spoke to the council about a municipality request to eliminate a bus stop in Pittsburgh. ACTC next scheduled meeting is February 21st, 2023, or 24 rather. The fourth item and last item is the Committee on Accessible Transportation. And lastly, the transportation did not meet in January, but they're scheduled to meet on February 1st. Unless there are questions, that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, John. Are there any questions? Great. Good report. Thanks. We'll move on to the report of the Finance Committee from its Chair, Anna O'Rourke.
Good morning, Chair and fellow board members. The Finance Committee met on Thursday, January 18th, and I have two resolutions for your consideration. The first resolution would authorize PRT to exercise the third option year of an agreement with First Data Merchant Services, LLC, to provide merchant bank card services for PRT's automated fare collection system, such as debit credit card processing. The Finance Committee recommends authorizing PRT to exercise the third option year to January 30th, 2025, and to increase the previously authorized total not to exceed by $662,438.84. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
The next resolution is an annual resolution which authorizes PRT to apply for and enter into agreements during calendar year 2024 for operating and capital grant funds. In many instances, the time period for developing and submitting an application or grant is limited, requiring PRT to move promptly to timely submit the application for available funds. This resolution would authorize PRT to submit applications for grants that would become available in calendar year 2024 in a timely manner. It was reported at the meeting that PRT's Finance Division will provide regular reports to the board concerning grants applied for and awarded throughout the year as part of the Finance Division's monthly report to the board. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
May I have a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
The following is a review of the November and December financial results also presented at last week's meeting. It was reported that total operating income for the months of November and December were over budget by about $300,000 and $400,000 respectively due to higher access revenue and interest income. Total expenses for the months of November and December were below budget by $3.8 million and $6.8 million respectively due to lower wages and benefits. That variance is driven by vacancies, which result in lower employee benefit expenses. Total operating income is about $4.9 million higher than last fiscal year through December due to higher passenger revenue and interest income. Total expenses through December are $9.1 million higher than the last fiscal year due to increased costs in almost all expense categories. The driver of that increase is salary and wages, with $6.4 million of the increased costs. Total subsidy is $83.9 million higher than last fiscal year due to an increase in federal stimulus invoicing, higher preventative maintenance invoicing, and increased state operating assistance. Finally, it was reported that PRT has invoiced a combined $59.7 million against the ARPA and CARISA federal stimulus programs for the fiscal year and ended the month of December with approximately $334.8 million in cash reserves. Unless there are any other questions or comments, that concludes my report.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Ann. With that, we'll move on to the report of the Technology Committee from Chair Jen Liptak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The committee met on January 18th, and first we have some cooperative contracts and bids. The first two cooperative contract purchases are for hardware and software from the Nutanix, which I appreciate the phonetic spelling on you guys, for infrastructure, servers, and storage. Next, the committee reviewed a request to rescind a prior contract award made to V-Prime for CIDAID support services due to V-Prime just being unable to meet PRT's contract requirements. The committee determined the cooperative contracts to be in accordance with the PRT procurement policies and procedures and the prices to be fair and reasonable, and the rescinding of the award to be the appropriate move. With that, I request my fellow board members approve these resolutions.
May I have a
So
motion?
moved. So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries.
We also, in committee, had presentations which were very well done, and I appreciate the staff for putting them together. They heard a presentation concerning a resolution to purchase ready-to-ride fare validators for the BRT platforms buses, and other new buses arriving this year. A total of 79 validators are being purchased for platforms, buses, and spare equipment for a total amount of $168,452. The committee concluded that the equipment is needed and that the prices are fair and reasonable. So with that, I respectfully request the board approve that resolution as well.
There a motion? Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do appreciate again the staff's movement forward with technology, specifically with the PRT coming on board. They're doing a great job.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to move to the report of the Financial Audit Committee. Senator Brewster, you're the chair of that committee. Can you provide that report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Financial Audit Committee held a public meeting on Thursday, January 18th, 2024. Representatives from Mayor Duzel, certified public accountants, presented the results of the fiscal year 2023 audit report. Mayor Duzel advised the committee that the fiscal year 2023 audit report concluded that PRT's fiscal year 2023 financial statements fairly present PRT's financial position as of June 30th, 2023 and June 30th, 2022, respectively, and that PRT has adequate controls in place to ensure adequate financial reporting and compliance with relevant laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements. Mr. Chairman, I want to thank my fellow committee members, Chairman Letwin, John Teague, other members at the meeting, our CFO, Dominica Brown, Michelle Zamanek, Lori Bogorski, and Jen Liptak. If there are no questions, I would like to propose that the board formally accept the fiscal year 2023 audit report and authorize the chairperson of the PRT's board and the chairperson of the Financial Audit Committee to sign a report indicating its formal acceptance by PRT. My fellow members, I respectfully request the board approve this resolution.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Thank
opposed?
you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brewster. Okay, with that, we'll move on to new business. The first order of new business is going to be the annual appointment of standing board committee chairpersons and members. There are several standing committees of the board created to assist the board in dealing with specific areas of our business. Each year, the chair appoints the board members who will serve on the standing committees during the coming year. Before I make my appointments to the standing committee chairs and members for 2024, I do once again to note that my fellow members and I recognize that there will be likely changes to the board composition with the new county executive having recently taken office. But standing committee members are being appointed at this time consistent with the PRT's bylaws and to ensure the PRT can continue to conduct routine business and that the bylaws provide a process for the board chair to replace standing committee members if board member composition changes during the calendar year. With that in mind, the following are my standing committee member appointments. Financial Audit Committee Chair Jim Brewster, Member John Tague. Finance Committee Chair Ann O'Gorick, Members Jen Liptak and Representative Nick Pisciatano. Governance Committee, which I chair along with Jen Liptak, Ann O'Gorick, John Tague, and Michelle Zamanek. Our Performance Oversight and Monitoring Committee, Michelle Zamanek as chair, Representative Pisciatano and Representative Ms. Gorski as members. Planning and Stakeholder Relations Committee, John Tague as chair, Ann O'Gorick, Stephanie Turman, and Allie Doyle as members. The Technology Committee, John Liptak as chair, and Lori Bogorski as member. And I'd like to thank those board members who served on the standing committees in 2023 for their time, for the important work they've done, which is greatly appreciated. Thanks also goes out to our board members who will be chairing and serving standing committees for 2024. If anybody doesn't want their appointments, let me know. Okay, the next order of business is a vote on our Chief Executive Officer's annual performance bonus. I would like to say we're lucky that we have such a wonderful executive of this organization, but it was actually the brilliance of this board in selecting her. So I'm going to take the luck out of it and say that I'm going to have us take all the credit for seeing the potential and then the potential turning into actual performance. And so great deal of respect and admiration for what you've done for the organization and continue to do for the organization. After reviewing the performance goals and the ability of the chief executive to meet those performance goals, the recommendation is that Catherine receive a 19.2% bonus, performance bonus to her annual salary. And I'm making that motion and requesting a second.
I
So
second.
moved.
And great, thanks. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That was awarded, and Catherine, congratulations and thanks for your continued commitment. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to public comment. And our first speaker is Amy Zeiss. And Amy, as you're approaching, let me just remind all our speakers that we have a 3-minute speaking limit. And I apologize to you, Amy, and in advance to everybody else who will be speaking for my rudeness when I cut you off at 3 minutes. Just trying to observe the protocol. So bear with me.
Thank you. Try to stay on time.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you for your attention today, the board and Kellerman. My name is Amy Zeiss. I'm a resident of Beachview, so I mainly rely on the red line. I want to talk briefly about continued reliability issues and how it relates to support. In a November 19th article, CEO Kellerman was quoted as saying, quote, "I would not say this is a crisis. I'd say we're delivering 99% of our service, which occurred last week. I'm happy with that. It's not perfect for everyone. There's clearly a mistrust out there. I think riders disagree about the level of service, and there's good reason for mistrust. For those of you who don't already know, the Pennsylvania Auditor's Report noted that, quote, from January 2022 through June 2022, PRT averaged approximately 5,500 hours of canceled services per month, as opposed to just 250 hours per month in the same period of 2019, end quote. That was pre-pandemic. Out of service hours have been reduced almost in half, down to about 1.5% system-wide, according to the annual service report that we just heard about. And sure, that might sound good, but pre-pandemic, it was less than 1%. To add to this picture, this past October, overall system reliability was at its lowest, lower than last year. Buses were on time only 65% of the time, and the T only 71%. You expect to have power provided by your electric company 24 hours a day, barring weather emergencies, correct? Well, imagine that your electricity goes out completely, leaving you totally in the dark for at least 30 minutes every single day. You can't work, you can't cook, nothing. You never know what time it'll happen. For another 8 hours of the day, your power is unreliable and inconsistent, coming in and out. This is what Pittsburghers face with current transit conditions. Does this really sound like delivering 99% of service? I urge you to consider why riders are mistrustful and what steps the agency can take to rebuild that trust. In the past year and a half, service has not been improved for us riders. We've seen service reduced and reliability decrease. Timely and accurate information is still not as accessible as it should be. Let me remind you why I first addressed the board back in June. I was literally and figuratively stranded due to a major red line disruption, unable to get customer support because of the hours, and unable to receive any kind of real-time information. It was a complete failure of the system on every level. That same month, PRT announced additional budgeting for customer service and an expansion of service hours, or customer service hours. Yet PRT ended the year with the same customer service hours it began with. I urge you to please continue focusing your efforts on expanding support hours and language access to riders. I mentioned that because I live in Beachview. You're still falling short of providing the information riders need when they need it. It's critical that PRT make customer service available during all operating service hours, and it's imperative for building trust. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's any written comment you want to submit to us, you can. submit
Great,
that.
thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Brian Gorder.
Hello, I'm a small business owner on the top of Mount Washington, 100 feet from Monongahela Incline. I own Gordo's Tacos and Tequila. 40% of the foot traffic to the Shiloh Street shops operates from the Monongahela Incline. In the last 2 years, the incline has been closed more than it has been open. In the fiscal year of 23, which ran from June of 22 through July of 23, the incline was closed for 9 months. Okay, it was an 8-month project plus 2-week closure plus 2-week closure. You ran shuttle services during those 9 months. There are no metrics. I was at the committee meeting last week. You have no metrics for that. You just lumped it in with everyone else. You spent $2,000 per bus per day over that time period. That's $1.3 million. You averaged 5 to 10 riders per day on these shuttles. That is $800 per rider. The cost to rent a Rolls Royce is $1,500 a day. Okay, you essentially rented Rolls Royces to ride these riders. Okay, there are much more feasible options for this. Also, you spent $8.7 million overhauling this. So no, it is not 150 years old. If you have a Model A and you put $100,000 into it, it is now brand new. Okay, so no, it is not 150 years old. You cannot hide behind that. This needs to open. Property values are diminishing. Businesses will close. Okay, I need you to take this into consideration. There are 4 businesses about to close right now on the Shiloh Street shops. These are major restaurants. I just put $1 million overhauling this building, and it's going to close because of you and your negligence. Something needs to be done. I get that when you close it, you collect bond money. We need some of that. It is not fair to get paid to close. It is not fair to get paid to not go to work. Something needs to change. Okay?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Joe Papovich.
Hello, my name is Joey Papovich, and I recently moved to Pittsburgh this year. I became a transportation advocate in the worst way possible as I hit and killed my little brother's best friend drinking and driving in 2016. It was the worst decision of my life. Post-incarceration, I returned to school, got my bachelor's degree, and I made it my life goal to make my neighborhood safer and improve transportation wherever I live. So far, I have added a stop sign to make an intersection safer near IEP's campus, and currently I am attempting to copy the mural in Friendship somewhere in the Indiana borough to narrow unsafe intersections with artwork. And my future plans are to return to Pitt this fall for a master's degree in urban planning. I want transportation to be accessible in Pittsburgh and to be discovered by people without having to go the route that I did. One of the biggest obstacles for PRT is real-time information and communication to its riders. The obstacles to guarantee a bus is coming or find out it is canceled is a large burden to grow your customer base. I've spoken to many of my peers trying to convince them to add the bus to commutes that make sense for them, especially during nights out. I then find myself explaining my entire process to find out if a bus is coming. First, I check the transit app to view my options an hour in advance to narrow down times, but then you can't trust it because it's based off the morning release schedule, and when they go out of service, they're still listed. Then you have to use the Port Authority app when it gets closer to you want to leave to actually guarantee that it's coming. Bouncing back and forth between apps is an unnecessary hassle. I believe it is in direct conflict with the goal of increasing riders and people depending on buses. Bus transportation is viewed as unreliable by many business owners and managers in the city. I know this from the amount of job applications I've applied to that require a license where one isn't necessary. If I didn't have my parents helping me with rent and expenses, I don't know where I'd be today. I'm asking you to make transportation more reliable for people that don't have a support system like I do. So people who are down can bounce back, and so people who are doing it all on their own can. So my coworker this summer who was pregnant Ubering when her bus got canceled to our $11 an hour job can pocket more of her paycheck. Do it so people can contribute and be a part of society and our community like I know they want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrew Hussein. Andrew, I know you're not here in the room. Are you online? Andrew? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we'll move on to the next speaker is Joe Dory. Joe Dorr? Joy, I'm sorry, Joy. No, yeah, Joy. Yeah, I'm looking at. Is Joy here? Joy, are you online? Going once? Going twice? Okay, Christina Hansen? Christina Hansen, you online?
I'm here,
Okay, go
yes.
ahead, you're on. You're on.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. My name's Christina. This is my third time coming to give my public comment at a board meeting. I live in the Uptown neighborhood and I have been affected significantly since October's cuts. And now hearing of more coming in February is alarming. I used to take the 71A, C, D, and 61D regularly to work, recreation, and essential shopping in between my workplace and my home. And I cannot stress enough how essential the 71C was for my daily life. I just want to echo a few sentiments of the people who commented before me, just unreliability and getting stuck out there. And last time I was in one of these meetings was in November, I think, and it was implied that a decrease in customer service calls and complaints were indicative of things going better. So during your break, I decided I would, in my most desperate moments, call the helpline. And one morning I called and I brought my anger to that call because I was going to be late for work again. And that energy was matched, but we managed to navigate our frustration. And the person on the line suggested that I get a paper copy of the schedule, that I can't trust the tracker apps, that I should call every time I try and catch a bus. But now with more connections, am I supposed to be calling every time I'm trying to catch a bus? Seems crazy to be put on hold, etc. So I called the second time whenever I was passed up trying to catch my connection in Oakland, a totally different day. And customer service was helpful again. And I managed to get where I needed to go. Instead of being early, I was barely on time. And then just this past Sunday, I tried to call whenever me and 3 other people were stranded out in a very cold day, no bus shelter. I was able to go back to my workplace to keep warm, but then the 71C never came. And I don't know whatever happened to the other folks who were waiting, but it was after hours to call to see what the tracker was doing, whatever. It was impossible. So anyway, I don't know. Just something that was mentioned earlier too is like a difference of like 9 to 12 minutes. Like you're used to a 9-minute wait and now you have 12. I was used to every like 10 minutes reliable service at most. And now it's been 30 to 60 minutes. I leave my house an hour before my shift starts on a weekday and an hour and a half on a Sunday. And a Sunday was when I got stranded out in the cold and my toes were so cold by the time I got home. So I guess what I'm trying to ask for in this time coming here is just while these changes are being made, like it's impossible to find paper copies on buses. We need more reliable shelters while we're stuck out in the elements in the middle of winter. And I mean, is it futile to ask for reinstating the bus routes that were cut, especially the 71C? I don't know, but
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tavion Smith. Tavion Smith. One more time. Tavion Smith. Okay. Our next regular meeting is Friday, February 23rd, 2024. And with that, we stand adjourned.